Hi, this is Jay. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to go over all the big three items that I chose for my upcoming Appalachian Trail through hike in 2022. I'm going to go over all the big three items, which are sleep system, shelter, and backpack, and all the related items with it. And I'll tell you why I chose them and some things people aren't bringing, but I still am. So I'll just go over all of that with you and come back after intro. First off is the backpack. I am going with a Z-Packs Arc haul. I had an Arc haul about the first 1,500, 1,600 miles of the PCT and held up really well. Certain things though started to fall apart. There were certain design flaws, which I noticed early, and then I saw that it just fell apart and the straps are starting to wear. But I think it lasted that long. I think it'll last just fine on 2,200 miles of AT. I originally thought about going with the Arc Blast because it's a Dyneema fabric and it's more waterproof, but the maximum load on that was a little lighter. And with all the stuff I was carrying electronics wise, I figured I'd get a backpack that can carry a little bit more. And why I'm going with this instead of using my Catalyst or another ULA backpack is I really like the arc portion of this backpack. Right now it's straight, but you can arc it in this mesh. Kind of arcs it away from your back. So when it's hot, you get a little airflow and you don't sweat as much. Or you sweat, but it dries out. Now, in practice, though, the bottom portion of your backpack will kind of bulge. So it'll actually still fill in about this much, but you still get some air. And I think that's a really good design just to not get as stinky. For the beginning of the hike, though, I am just going to leave it flat, because I actually want the surface area against my back to help keep me warm. But once it warms up, I'll loosen it up, or I'll tighten it up. I might just take off this altogether and just stuff it in the bottom and reinstall it once I need the arc. Haven't quite decided. But on here is my PGY Tech camera clip and an umbrella holder from Z-Packs on the right. I'm not sure how well this will work because it's a little thinner shock cord. And I do have hip belts on them. And that's the gist of it. It's just one big pack on the inside. I put a trash compactor bag in there. And that'll be my liner against the rain. But that's all there is. There's a side pocket. Side pockets are nice. You can put 2 water bottles in there. You can reach them easily. Got some elastic here so you can put things so it doesn't fall out. Overall, a great backpack, so I'm looking forward to using it. I do have extra lumbar pad and shoulder pads in a box. Thing is, when they're new, the padding is all great. And then before you start, your padding is pretty good too. But once you start losing that fat, and once some of this padding goes away, there are little metal bars down here, and they start digging into your hip and like right into your sacrum. So an extra layer of padding will be amazing. I bought the padding already because on the PCT, when I realized that I needed the additional padding, which is around mile 800, 900, I wrote Z-Packs and they told me it was a 6-week wait. 6 weeks. Through hike would have been almost over by then. So I decided this time around, I'm going to buy them and keep them and have them sent to me with my first pair of replacement shoes. I got the shoulder strap pads as well. One thing about the Arc Haul shoulder straps, is, see that line? There's a strap that goes all the way to the base here, and that actually winds up supporting a lot of the weight. And what happens is that starts cutting into the foam and hitting your shoulder. The problem also is that the foam has a line right down where the strap is. So the strap actually just digs in through the gap and gets right on you. So it's nice having an additional padding just to give more of a buffer from that. And if you look closely down here, there are little bars here. These are little metal bars to help keep it, stable. But you will feel that right against your bone. There's not much foam there. Most of the foam is here and here. But over here, there's not much foam, and you'll be feeling it pretty quickly. So order some lumbar pads before you get going. Install it before you go, or just have it ready to be shipped to you when you need it. With this backpack, I do use a pack cover. This is also from Z-Packs. I think it's a medium. It's super, super light, and I just stow it usually in the back, and whenever I need it, you can put it on, and has worked great. I've had it throughout the entire PCT, and I wish I'd had it on the Arizona Trail. For some reason, I thought it didn't precipitate much there, but the snow got me hard. But so it's pack cover and the pack. Let's go on to the next item. For my sleeping pad, I chose the Thermarest Neo Air X Lite in the short version. I'll try not to move it around too much because it's brand new, so it's pretty noisy. This is a newer version with the wing lock valve, and it came with this little blow-up sack. I like the blow-up sacks. The old X-Therm it came with one as well, but the blow-up sack nozzle was just like a little rubber hole, and you just push it over the nozzle. But for some reason, this one is just rock hard plastic, and you got to get it over the rock hard plastic of the nozzle, and it takes a lot of force. So I'm kind of worried about that. That pump sack is supposed to go over this little ring here, but this is so hard, you just can't push it in. And the problem is, when you try to push it in, I noticed I was pushing like this, and I think I'm just going to wear a hole right around here, or right in the corner where it's sharp. So kind of worried. I might try to get the other pump sack, but this is a lot wider, so it might not work. But all else fails, I'll just use my breath. So as a short pad, I usually use a pillow, so it goes about like this, and it goes below my knee. I'm only 5'6", so it works out for me. Short pad is just easier to manipulate in a small tent, so it works great in a single person tent. And it's very light, just over 8 ounces. The reason I'm using a blow-up sack instead of just blowing into it with my mouth, with the short one, it's not that much work blowing it up with your mouth, but I'm trying to avoid getting too much moisture into the sleeping pad. Some people say the moisture kind of lowers the R value. I'm not sure about that, but I do know that if you keep blowing into it over the months, it'll actually get heavier because the moisture doesn't ever come out and there's mold buildup in there. And I also like to blow ambient temperature air into it instead of 98.6 temperature. You'll find if you blow it up, you should blow it up and then maybe an hour later blow more, because throughout the night, as the air cools, it'll actually shrink quite a bit. A lot of people complain that their sleeping pads have a leak, but most often because they blow it up and they lay on it and it feels great. But throughout the night, as it cools down, it'll shrink quite a bit and your butt will touch the ground. But I have found that if you blow it up with a pump sack, even though at the temperature, when you blow it up, it's warmer than it's going to be at the middle of the night, it's still not as bad as blowing it up with your mouth and then in the middle of the night. So generally on the Arizona Trail, I use a pump sack, and I never had to reinflate my sleeping pad ever. So that's why I'm using it. I just hope that I can keep using it, because I am concerned about the plastic nozzle part. It's too hard, and it's so hard to get in there. So hopefully that wears out over time and gets a lot easier. I checked out Thermarest's website and looked for complaints about it, but in their videos, you're just like, plop, you'll hear a click, but it's so hard. But that's why I'm going to use this stuff sack, and if it doesn't work out, I get rid of it. With the sleeping pad, I will be using a pillow. I actually like to use the pillow half off the sleeping pad and half on. It's the Xpad UL. It's a little dirty, but you know, it's been everywhere with me. But yeah, I like to use half on the sleeping pad and half off, and it actually stays put really well. I've been cowboy camping with it several times and it's never blown away. I don't move too much when I sleep, so that helps out. But this makes it so when you have a 4-foot sleeping pad, you get a little bit more because you use it on your head, and you only have a little bit of your feet left over, a little bit of your legs and your feet left over. Also though, on a 4-foot sleeping pad, what I do is I usually put my backpack under my legs. Then I use my sit pad, which is 3 panels from a Thermarest Z-Lite sole, and I just put it on top of the backpack. And this just creates a little bit of cushion, so you put your legs on top of it, and then it doesn't hurt if you got weird straps or something like that. But this is usually sufficient for me. Usually have a little bit of padding from the quilt bottom as well, and it works out great. And in a pinch, you can also take this and put it under your back area. I did have to do that at Glacier National Park because my sleeping pad got a leak. And I noticed if I put this pad under there, I can go the whole night though. Whereas if I didn't, I'd have to blow it up in the middle of the night. So this will be with me as well. And this is part of what makes it possible to have a 4-foot sleeping pad and still be comfortable. The little sit pads that Thermarest sells are maybe half the size, and I find they're just too small. It's like just enough room for your butt. But I like to sit cross-legged in any random ways, and this gives you plenty of room to sit there and still put some things where it's not on the ground. Plus, with this version, compared to like the little 1/8 inch foam everyone's buying, this is actually insulated. There's still some R value here, so it's actually warm if you keep it this way. Your butt will stay a little warmer. It's a little thicker. Sure, you can't lay it out and put your sleeping pad on top of it, but I found my sleeping pad doesn't move that much unless I set it up on really bad ground, and I'm fine with it. And if I had to, I can just put this around underneath the torso part, and that'll help keep my core warmer if the blow-up head doesn't work as well. But mostly it's going to be under my feet, I think, just on top of the backpack. My tent will be the Zpacks Altaplex. Yes, I chose Altaplex. This is my little extender because my trekking pole is not big enough. Because it packs down just as small as a Plexamid, and it weighs the same, although I gotta bring this, so it might weigh a little bit more. But it is very tall. In fact, I set it up outside and it came to about here at the top. And because of that, the walls are extremely steep. So if it snows, I'm counting on more of it to brush off. Because if you get a lot of snow and it's not brushing off as well, it just starts sinking. And the problem is Dyneema does not stretch, but the guy lines will stretch a little bit, I think, but they'll definitely slip a little as more force is applied. So I like it if the snow just drifts off by itself. Otherwise, I guess I'll just wake up and just whack the walls anyway, but I set it up. It had plenty of room for me and all my gear on the side, so I think I'll be pretty happy with this, and it's nice and small and light. And then here's a little extender. It's 1 foot long, and yeah, it just goes in here. I just have to watch out because there's a little rivet in here that feels pretty rough. Might go file it down. With this, I'm also bringing a footprint. I do like to use a footprint because it keeps the bottom of the tent cleaner. If it's dirty or if there's a muddy area, not like super muddy, but dirty muddy, it keeps the tent clean, and it's a lot easier to just hose off a footprint or just rinse it in the bathtub and hang it than try to clean off the bottom of the tent and hang that. And also, if this is wet, it's a lot easier during a break just to set it up, lay it out, and let it dry than setting up the whole tent. And plus, I like having this take all the abuse that the tent may have if you put it on any surface at all, really. And this is also just easier to replace than the face of your tent. The other big thing too is if you ever sleep in a shelter, it's nice to have some kind of layer between the wood and your sleeping pad, because there could be all kinds of pebbles, like you might brush it off as well as you could, or it could be little pebbles in there, or if you move just right, it wears a hole, or there could be splinters in the wood. So it's nice having a footprint just to lay it out, and then you can put kind of your stuff on top of the footprint. It's a very small footprint, but it'll help keep things a little cleaner. With that, here's my steak bag. And I have a variety of steaks. I'll show you a picture here. I'm bringing just enough because 2 of the steaks I don't think I'm going to use that often unless the wind is really bad. So I'll just use those as backups if something happens. For my sleeping bag, I have a Enlightened Equipment Revelation 20 degree 950 fill short wide. I bought this in 2016, and I guess the following year they started putting a little more down in for that temperature rating, for all the temperature ratings. So this is a little thinner, I guess. Now, when I first learned about quilts, I loved the idea because I hated sleeping bags because I always had my feet get hot. In fact, on the Arizona Trail, I never slept with socks on. On the PCT, I did it once. Cowboy camping below Forester Pass, just over 12,000 feet. So yeah, my feet run warm in a regular sleeping bag. my feet get so hot and I always have to stick it out. And the zipper starts pretty high, so I always wind up with my legs way up and then stuck out, and I hated that. But come to quilt, and I learned that, especially the Revelation, you can open this, so you can stick your feet out. You can open it just enough to stick both feet out, or a little bit, and just change out which foot goes outside. And to me, when it's really cool out, that's like icing your feet. So I love to just stick my foot out and then switch out or keep both out. And I love this, so I'm glad I got the Revelation. If your feet get cold, I'd say avoid the Revelation, because people complain that it gets drafty, because even if you cinch it up all the way, there's like a tiny hole. I mean, you could put a sock in there before you cinch it and that'll clog it up. But I think it's great. And I guess some people like the idea of just being able to open it all the way. But if your feet get cold, consider the Enigma or something that's closed. It'll be lighter and it'll just be warmer for your legs and feet. For me, I'm fine. So this quilt has been with me since 2016 and it's been everywhere. I recently cleaned it on the Arizona Trail and it's nice and fluffy and it'll be my baby. I'll use this the entire Appalachian Trail because I don't think at any point on my hike it'll get too hot, not like 100 degrees hot. But on the PCT it did get to 100 degrees several days and I still use this. I just pushed it off to the side and just didn't use a blanket. So easy. With the Enlightened equipment this time around, I will be using a Thermolite reactor. It's a little sleeping bag liner that's supposed to add like 10 degrees, 15 degrees or something. It's okay. It's weird because in a quilt, you just kind of just get on and you put it over yourself, but this has a hole on the top, so you have to kind of slide in. But it'll provide the extra warmth I'm going to need, at least on a few nights. I don't think I'll use it that much, but it's nice to bring. It's a little heavy, so once it warms up a little, I'm going to send it home and be happy about that. I'm sure some of you are wondering if 20-degree bag is going to be sufficient for my January 28th start date. And I think it will, because I've been through colder without this, with the same gear I had with my Torrid Puffy, and I was cold, but I still slept. And this time around, I will have this, and I also have my Melanzana fleece, and I'll be wearing that while I sleep. So that should be a significant amount of warmth. In fact, most of the time I also sleep with my pants off. I just keep my pants under my legs just so it doesn't get freezing cold in the morning. But that's usually enough for me, so I think I'll be pretty comfy. It really helps when you know what you can tolerate and what makes you comfortable. That way you can get what you need and not just exactly what you think you need or what people tell you that you should need. I do own a Neo Air X Therm, and some of you are probably wondering why I'm not bringing that instead of the X Lite. The X Therm has definitely a much higher R value, and I can tell you for sure that the X Therm is warm. If you're a cold sleeper, consider that hands down. I especially liked it because there's one side has a slightly thicker material than the other, so I thought it'd be more puncture resistant. And even on the Arizona Trail, on freezing nights, like 32-degree Fahrenheit nights, I think, my back was warm. In fact, many nights when I was laying there, I could feel it getting a little damp, like not soaking through, but it's sweating. I'm just laying there, but my top would be kind of cool. So I think for me, the X Therm is too warm for me, unless I get down to like 0 degrees, in which case I'm gonna need a better quilt. But the X Therm is just too warm for me, so I can't use it. I will, especially with the Melly on, I'm gonna really sweat. So I'll use the Neo Air X Lite. The R value is actually still pretty good on that thing, and I have used it in Washington stretch of the PCT, where many nights it got very cold, snowed on me once, rained most of the days I was there, but I was still comfortable, and I think I'll be okay with the X Lite short. For me, there are a couple of key elements when using a quilt. Well, there's no head part, so you got to keep your head warm. So I like to just have a fleece hat, and I guess I'll put that on. And I like the fleece hats that are a little longer because when there's a full moon out, it's just so bright. It's nice to be able to pull it over your eyes and go to sleep. So yeah, I like it little longer. And if you're not using it like that, you get a little puffy, but it's okay. And usually I use a chamois, but this here is a merino kerchief by North X North, like North by North. It's merino wool. It's definitely heavier and it's soft, and it should be more odor resistant because it's merino. But I usually, when it's really cold, I'll put the hat on and I'll wrap it around my head like this. And I won't do it right now, but basically it creates a fabric channel around the neck. So my quilt will go right around here, and I have a nice soft wool fabric against my neck, and the quilt can be here and I'm comfy. If it's really cold, I'll pull it across my face and then pull this down. Just my eyes are showing. But this is the way I slept a lot when it's super, super, super cold. And this is probably the way I'll sleep when it gets cold for me here. The merino wool is much warmer than a chamois, of course. So I expect that I'll be super warm with this. The Melly has a hood, so I still pull that over and that covers my mouth. And if I needed to, I can actually drape this over my body just to help keep my core warm. It's a good amount of merino, so I think it'll be a great addition if I needed it. But for the most part, I'm just gonna keep it wrapped around my neck. I really hate getting my neck cold. On the Arizona Trail, I hike with the chamois wrapped around my neck most of the time, and I will with this. I'm not expecting desert heat times, so I don't think I'm gonna have to take it over my head. So yeah, so I'm excited to try this out. The owner of the company contacted me because he saw that I like chamois and he offered me one to try out. But the funny thing is I bought this like months before he even asked me, maybe over a year. But I didn't take anything. So this is the one I paid for myself. So interesting. That's really it for my big 3 items. Right after this, I'll take you outside and show you my first time setting the Altaplex up. Of course, it has to be in the snow, and my experience is sitting in it as a 5'6" person in a tent meant for tall people. It's actually quite funny. And that's really it. I'll give you a little demonstration of how to use a quilt as well. I know a lot of people may not have as much experience with a quilt, so may think it's like a sleeping bag, but you have to consider it something else. And I'll show you how that works out here. Here I am outside my sister's backyard. There's snow. It's the first time it's been above freezing in over a week now. So I figured it's time to set up my Altaplex for the first time. This is the Altaplex. This is the tent I'll be bringing with me on my Appalachian Trail through hike. This is the way it comes from the store. And it's nice and compact. It'll never be this small again. It's nice and hard. It's about the size of a football, a rectangular football. But let's get to work. It's a little breezy. Not as windy as yesterday, but I do use a footprint. I think the footprint helps identify the spots a lot easier. And people ask, what do you weigh it down with? You could use anything as long as it's a little heavy. And generally with the wind, you only need 3 weights at most, unless it keeps shifting. But this ought to do. I'm gonna set it up with the tent facing this way. First things first, let's try to figure out how to untie this thing. And let's figure out the guy lines. I've had the duplex for quite a while, so I figured the setup is similar, although the directions here say set up the 4 corners first. So we'll do that. See if we can figure this out here. The directions say to stake out the corners first, so I'll do that. The guy line seems to be pulled out all the way, so I'll undo that. Oh, it's not unfolded yet. There you go. First you stake out the corner that's facing the wind, just so it straps down the end. Hopefully the ground's not too frozen. It's not too bad. With the Altaplex, you need a much taller pole. The trekking pole has to get up to 56 inches, and I did buy the 1-foot extender for it. And inside, I did play around with the ruler and figure out I needed it at 130 and 115. I know I'm going to forget those numbers on trail someday, so I figured out if I stand this is even with my nipple. So if I ever forget, I just need to just make it even with my nipple, and it's perfect height. There's a little hole in there. You just put the tip in and it just goes up to there and then it stops. So when you make your measurements, you got to measure it to here. It's a tall tent. It's almost as tall as I am. I got it staked in. Now I'm going to go around and tighten everything up and put in the additional guy lines in the back. This is pretty much it. The door's a little loose right now. What you do is you just got to tighten this thing. That's just for looks. Big thing with the Altaplex and the duplex, they have an overlap in the front vestibule. So you want the overlap part facing the wind, so it just goes over. I found if you face the inside towards the wind hits the gap and it just flows into the tent. So face that towards the wind and it looks like I'm all set. I'll need to put in more of these. There are 3 guy lines back here, not 2. Looks like one is definitely going to be an important one in the very middle. So here's the tent set up. It's very tall. Of course, the zipper is in the far corner. Oh gosh. Wow, I forgot how nice the new zippers feel. Big thing with the zippers, by the way, is try not to ever press down on the mosquito netting where you separate it, because you bend the ends. So be as gentle as you can. It's snowy and cold in here. That's why I brought the sit pad though. In real life, you kind of want to get rid of some of the snow because it keeps reforming and it's all wobbly in here. Here's the inside of the duplex. I am showing it to you in super view mode, which is nice and wide. So it does look like I'm going to have to tie that one off just to keep it off the floor a little better. But once you get stuff in here, it'll hold everything down. So that's not too bad. Overall, really nice. The big thing to remember with these zippers also is as you zip this part, this is where the tension is that holds the floor up. You want to kind of lift it up to aid the zipper as you zip, so you don't just try to force it. But coming along here, I'm going to lay down. I'm going to blow up my sleeping pad a little bit and just lay down on it. But it's super tall. Oh my goodness. I am reaching up as high as I can, sitting on my sit pad, and I cannot touch the top. I'm going to have to like stretch to wipe. This is one of the reasons I picked the Altaplex, because it's really tall, so any snow is going to sleet off. And any rain will pour off better than the duplex, which is a little shallower. But because it's super tall, I think all the snow will definitely just kind of slide off. If not, it'll do a better job than the duplex at least. And look at that netting over here. It's huge. Huge. Interesting. One good way to dry out socks I have found is I just put it on the mosquito netting on the sides like that. In fact, this spot is so wide, you could definitely put a couple of socks here. Sure, they're gonna freeze if it's below freezing, but this is bigger than a hand's width across. Normally it's only, you know, a lot less, half that. So that's actually really nice to put clothes to dry. I've been sliding around on here, so this looks like it's shallow right here, but it's not. It's just the footprint or the tent is just sliding around a lot on the snow. Well, let's blow up that sleeping pad. I just take my sleeping pad and I rolled it up and wrap this blow sack around it and just use a little bit of shock cord and just hold it together. Usually that's enough, and this will protect the sleeping pad some in case something pokes it. But another reason I really like the short sleeping pads are they're short. They don't take up much space. They're a lot easier to manage when you have your stuff in here. Like you can have your backpack at the end, and your short still has plenty of room for you to manipulate. So I am going to use a stuff sack here. The one thing I am worried about this blow up sack is this plastic part here. It's hard, so when it's really cold, I'm afraid it's going to get really brittle or even harder than it already is. Kind of tough. And it's sometimes pretty hard to get it onto here. So let's hope it's not too hard on trail, otherwise I'm just gonna ditch this guy. It's way too hard. At the end, I like to just put in a couple breaths just to get a little firmer. Let's give it a shot. I got plenty of room in my head here. I could put all kinds of stuff. I got plenty of room for my backpack. Put my feet up. Much roomier than I thought it was going to be. Look, I could even stretch. Here's what this looks like the way I'm laying down right now. I'll probably keep the sleep pad down a little. But there's all this headroom. I could put a variety of the usual things I have up here, like camera, headlamp, things like that. And there's still plenty of room on the side. Because I'm kind of leaning towards the mesh part because that's taller, so I can keep my head off here. When it's windy and you don't have this part staked down, this will flap. So it's nice not being woken up. But there's so much room here for all the other stuff I might need, like electronics I need to charge, water, and look along the side. There's even more room along here. I could probably even put my pack here, but I'm gonna put my pack by my feet. And when I sit up, here's how much room there is down here. Plenty of room. My backpack would be under my legs. I'll put my sit pad on top of the backpack and it'll help elevate it a little. It's nice because some place to put a backpack, and when you elevate it, it helps, you know, just your feet recover over the night. I will say folding up a sleeping pad when it's short is so much easier in a single person tent. It's nice when you're sharing a tent with someone else as well. It just makes it a lot easier. It takes up so little room. I will say though, the wing locks are sort of nice, but it makes the whole head bigger and it takes up more space when you fold it up. So there's a hard section. There's a lump right there, so this part is also bigger. Kind of like the old stuff sack that just had the rubber seal. I might actually try that out and see if it works better. Someone mentioned to me that the Altaplex seems easier to get in and out of because the door is higher. But it looks like the mesh is about the same height. The arc is exactly the same. It's just the tall point's really high. But the arc of the mesh is about the same height. So overall, I thought it worked out great. I'm looking forward to using it. I think I will have to tie off the corners, but I might not have to stake down the ends on the side unless it's really windy. But overall, much roomier than I thought it was going to be, and I'll be perfectly fine. It's a lot smaller and lighter than a duplex. It's light blue. Part of the reason I chose the blue color is it's more photogenic instead of the camouflage. I originally got the camouflage thinking I was gonna like stealth camp in the real sense, as in hiding somewhere where you don't want to be seen, but it's just not as photogenic as a nice blue contrasting with the environment. One of the reasons I like having a footprint is you could fold your tent on top of it, especially when it's muddy or just wet. It's nice having something dry and clean where you could work on. Otherwise, your tent's just getting dirtier and dirtier. You can't fold it in the air, just like on your leg. I have done that several times, but I just find it's easier to use a footprint. So I like to fold it a couple times. That's the way you usually do it. Some people say just stuffing it in a stuff sack is better for the material instead of folding, but it's not bad. Nice and small. It's got some snow on it, so I'll take it inside and dry it out before I put it away for good. So here's my quilt, and the big gist of it is the bottom's wide open. Your back should be against the sleeping pad, not the quilt itself. So let's get in. Just stick your feet in. And that's basically it. Just like a big blanket. I usually go like this in the beginning because it's not too cold. And you can kind of lift it off. When it gets really cold, what I do is I snap the neck button and then pull it over my head. And then pull the drawstring closed. There's always stages, so at first I snap the cord and I sleep like this, and as it gets colder I'll pull the drawstring closed. And that's it. With the chamois on, it creates a great seal around the neck and keeps me warm. Around the sides here, what I do is I just tuck it under my body a little bit, just the edges, just so there's a seal against the outside. But I don't pull it all under my body, just the sides. And it's super warm. In fact, my feet are starting to sweat. But to lay sideways, I spin. But when you spin, you kind of have to push your quilt so it turns, so you don't spin your whole quilt. And if I turn sideways, I'll actually reach behind me and I'll pull the quilt under my body, just the little edges. And then I'll have a pillow here, but that's pretty much it. Here the snaps. I just snap it. Bend your legs so you can go over your head. Extend your legs out again. And there you go. Nice and cozy, and then just pull the drawstring in, just around your neck. That's all there is to a quilt, really. And remember to tuck in the edges of the quilt under your body. Just enough. And the way I usually sleep, the one thing is if your arms fall off your sleeping pad, they'll come out under your quilt and it could be cold. So I usually sleep like this. I usually cross my fingers so my fingers are stuck together. Or sometimes I'll sleep like this, kind of cross, kind of like, this actually works sleeping. I mean, it's actually comfortable. And your arms don't fall off the sleeping pad and exit the quilt. Or sometimes I go like this. If it's really cold though, I prefer not to provide extra tension against the sleeping bag. So I'll put my hands under my butt. And that will keep my arm from falling off out of the quilt and off the sleeping pad and hitting the ground. This works really well. Hands under the butt. That's how I sleep a lot of the time. Here's how I fill my pack. Right now it's empty except the contractor bag inside. And what I do, it's gonna be a little noisy because it's crinkly, everything's new. So what I do is I just put clothes inside I'm not wearing. Hand, little cloth, mittens, short sleeve shirt. I just shove it inside. It doesn't matter. 3 pairs of socks, because in this scenario I'm wearing a waterproof socks. By the way, I like to have different colored pairs because then you're easier to find in the pack because you know which is which because there's a left and a right. Shove that in there. Shorts. Let's see. One liner, bug net, compactor, sleeping pad, and pillow. And really they just go any way. The clothes is mostly to absorbing kind of sharp things so the sleeping pad doesn't get it. So now for the quilt. I just shove it in there. So once that's all in, I'll fold the compactor bag in and then fold over. And there's gonna be a bunch of air in there. There's not much you can do about that. I usually hurry and put the food bag in there. This has miscellaneous items, but usually a food bag would be heavier and bigger. So I shove that in there. And what the heavy item does is it compresses the quilt, so the quilt doesn't take up as much room. You give it time and it's gonna expand out of the backpack. So you wanna weigh it down. And off to the side there's a gap. So it's my electronics item. Food's heavy, electronics is heavier. My miscellaneous item with the first aid and repair kits and whatnot. Pot will go on top of that. Next I'll just put the puffy. I usually put the puffy somewhere high up, because when I get to camp that's the first thing I put on. Previously my tent was long and thinner, so I might try to fold it thinner next time. And it's really everything that will go inside. Oh yeah. This isn't the ULA, there's no side clip. As you can see, there's still plenty of room. So it needs room for all the food that's going to go in there. It's going to be a little higher with the food, and it's actually still quite light. It's because the camera isn't attached, and there are several things still not in here. So here, pull it bag, just shove it in the bottom. Rain gear. I anticipate my rain gear I'll be wearing in the morning most days, especially the rain jacket. Micro spikes I'll put in the side pocket. I'll put in the left one, as well as the umbrella and the bear bag, earth sack, stuff in the side like that. This actually should have gone in the tent. On this side would be a water bottle. This I usually clip onto the sternum strap. That's at the very end. Pack liner will also go in the netting. And the rest of the miscellaneous items just go in the side pockets. One will be dedicated to snacks, and one will have a pen, GoPro headlamp. I also have a fanny pack that'll have the lavalier microphone, my phone, as well as, really that's it. Oh yeah, camp shoes, unfortunately. Forgot about that one. That's going to take up the bulk of the rest here. Ideally, I like to put camp shoes inside, so I might get a little grocery bag and just do that. Because there's room inside, it's just bulky and dirty. But that's it. Everything's in there that I need to take with me, except all the food. It's a little light now because the food bag only had a few things in there, so it wasn't too heavy. But there'll be another bottle of water on the opposite side, just so I have one bottle on each side. But that's basically it. It's still, you can tell it's not as high as it can go, because I'll have room for additional food. And if I can get the shoes inside, I could put my bag of chips out here. I usually put a bag of chips out here, so it's easy access. My sit pad I'll have strapped across the top, so it'll just slide in here. I used to put it on the bottom, I used to put it on top. I don't know, I think I like the top better. That's my pack. This guy's a beast. Wish I could do something else with him. And here I am. Fits okay. I got the medium, although I'm shorter than the size rating. Seems to fit fine. And then I'll loop the camera over my head. I always use a strap because I don't trust the clips all the time. And then that's how I carry it. This is a different camera, of course. The other one's gonna feel more like this, I guess. But once everything's tightened down, it feels pretty good. It's amazing how nice new zippers are. Amazing. Yeah, so this is it without the arc as well. So it's flush against my back. And this will keep me warmer instead of just having an air gap there. What backpacker doesn't have one of these? 22 pounds, 21.7 pounds. And that's without food, lacking a liter of water, and the camera's not attached. But this is everything that'll be on my back portion. The camera will be on the front. But that's everything. So what did I say? 22.6. By the way, this is just a luggage scale. Just, you loop it under there, and I've seen people hook this all kinds of weird ways. But you just hook it to itself right here. And you hang your bag, and it tells you to wait. So that's it. That's my overview of my big three and all its related items. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Below in the description, there is a lighter pack link. Inside there, I'll have all my items and things I'll change. If I change anything, you obviously can't change the video, but I'll change it in the lighter pack. And all the weights are in there, and they're linked to all the items. A lot of the links are affiliate links if they're going to Amazon. And affiliate links, you probably know by now, if you click on it and buy something through there, we get a small percentage. It costs the same to you, so there's no loss to you. It's just we get a little support. So if you're interested in any of these things, look down there. And most of my big three items are cottage retailers, so there are no affiliate links for that. Like Enlightened Equipment and Z-Packs. That's it. My big three. Big three items are actually very light. I don't need that much to sleep. I'm a pretty warm sleeper, so that really helps out. And I really needed that to cut all the weight with the big three so I can carry additional electronics and things like that. So that was my goal in choosing like much smaller and lighter things, just trying to cut weight so I can offset the other electronics I'll be carrying. So I'll talk to you later, and you all have a great night. Thanks for watching.